Well, let's move on because another interesting piece. Our good friend Jonah Freedman wrote an article for MLS. MLS, they call it what? MLSsoccer.com, which a lot of people still make fun of. Someday they'll fix that. Anyhow, Jonah wrote an article that says, in year 17, MLS must now chase all fans. And the only point in that was that, A, we have stars in the league now, so you can't complain that we don't have stars in MLS. It's not a retirement league, and he points out players that make that case. And number 3, the competition is, in fact, intense. We're getting better. And it's time for all these guys that wake up at 7 a.m. in the morning to watch their La Liga matches or watch the EPL. And a lot of people would say would consider them, because they don't watch the MLS at all. They turn their nose up at it. They consider these folks Euro snobs. And basically, Jonah's just saying it's time for that to end. We need to get these folks to get on the MLS bandwagon. We need to get them involved in supporting their local team. And then, I had no real complaints about that article, really. But there is a guy, and hate to give him too much coverage because his name is Ted Westervelt. And he has a website called Soccer Reform. And, he's a big proponent of PNR. I am too, but not as crazy as he is. And he says to Jonah Freedman, I think he tweeted him, 10 times?
At least.
Basically, he just goes off on MLS and says that, I'll read a couple of them. MLS is built to survive a lack of passion, interest, and quality for a really long time. And then he goes on to criticize the fact that these aren't clubs. What will happen when Timber Sounders and Union fans face the cold hard facts that their club has little autonomy? MLS is a league, he says, of soccer clubs, like Burger King is a league of restaurants. It's a fake league, he says, of artificial clubs we don't like. Not the lack of underwear models. All right, so Brett, I know you read this, and I just thought maybe Ted was getting a little out of control here.
No, he certainly was. Jonah was basically emphasizing that MLS would excel if they got all these soccer fans who follow other teams around the world, whether it be they have cultural ties, like they came from that country recently, or if it's just a family tradition to really follow this team. He's not saying that that he doesn't present any grand scheme as far as how we can attract these fans, but he does say we need to attract them. Once we do have them, we need to show them that we're worth their attention.
Right.
He's not saying that we need to necessarily say, okay, you and you. We need to start following this league, or else,
Right.
I think Ted went overboard on it. He's not saying that there's some magical scheme that as far as being able to get these fans and that. The drought's over. We can start watching MLS. Hey, it's just it seemed a bit overdone.
Hey, Ted, who cares really right now that the clubs don't have 100% autonomy? And by the way, clubs don't ever really have, even if you're in the EPL, 100% autonomy. There are rules they have to follow too. Certainly not cap rules they have to worry about, but there are rules. And I think the whole idea that he's expecting a league that was just born not long ago by, basically a few owners who came together and basically set up a league and then saved the league, survived contraction when it looked like it was about to fall apart. Listen, we're still at a very early stage. It's easy for countries like England, who have such a long history of support for the game. They can start out with individual clubs. That's fine. But in the United States, this is how we have made it happen and made it survive. You can go back to the old NASL model from the 70s and the 80s. I don't think that that's a smart model to start a league off with in this country, in a country where there were no soccer fans hardly before this whole thing started. I think Ted's being a little, radical. I think the MLS clubs are slowly but surely getting more autonomy, getting to make more choices. There are certain rules set up that allow them to make more choices and to you have you can what do they call that? Discovery a player, blah, blah. There are lots of things that we don't all, you and I don't agree with a lot of all the rules that give them, more autonomy, etc. But come on. This is a little out there on left field. I'm not sure why Ted felt the need to tweet Jonah's Twitter 50 times.
I think that there are certainly some rules that MLS can drop. We've talked about them in many shows.
Yep.
However, you look at leagues abroad, you look at EPL, you look at La Liga, you look at Serie A, you look at a lot of the South American leagues. Maybe they would start thriving financially if they had a few more rules.
Yeah.
In all honesty, I'm not, they are thriving financially, but they're spending more than they're actually making.
Yeah, most teams are.
You look at how many teams of recent in the UK alone have gone into administration.
Oh my God, Rangers, folks, Rangers.
Yeah, these are teams with massive amounts of history
and fans
across
the world.
They're making money in Europa. They're making money in the Champions League.
TV.
TV rights. Everything. And yet these teams are falling into debt.
They're overspending. Yep.
They're overspending. That's the thing. Maybe they would thrive a little bit more if they followed the Bundesliga route.
Yeah.
Where you can't spend 3/4 of what you make.
Yep.
I think that's how the rule is there.
Something needs to happen. Of course, FIFA has been talking about that for some time, making that sort of. And then, of course, some of the big clubs would really suffer dramatically because, there's people really don't know how much some of these clubs are in debt. I don't think a lot of people really understood the extent of debt, for instance, that Rangers was in and how precarious it was. And it's come back to bite them in the ass. And so, Ted, just chill for a little while. Give MLS another 5 years, 10 years. We'll see what happens. It's a slow process.
There's a reason why MLS is working side by side with Bundesliga rather than La Liga or EPL, who might have more more popular teams here in the States.
Yep.
There's a reason why they're working with them. It's because the Bundesliga is financially stable for the most part. 99.9% of the teams are financially stable, and I won't say all of them because there are some that are struggling. We saw Buttle get the kick because they're struggling financially.
Yep.
However, all the teams, like I said, I believe Bundesliga has a rule where you can only spend like 3/4 of what you make. So if you make $1 million, you can only spend $750,000.
Right.
So it's just there's a reason why we have these rules.
Yes.
And we pointed it out.
Yeah.
That you're not going to thrive if you just say it's an open market, go for it, let's see what happens. It's not going to happen. We're going to see a lot of, like we mentioned in the earlier segments, you're going to see a lot of teams enter just to exit immediately.
Yeah.
So there's reasons for the rules.
Yeah.
Like I said, though, there are rules that we can get rid of, but there are reasons why we're doing the things we're doing. So I think, like I said, I think it's a bit overboard, and I think his heart's in the right place as far as where you want it to go.
Right.
Where you might want the promotion relegation. You want the teams to have pure ownership, but we're not there.
Yeah.
And
that's
a sad fact. We might see some teams thrive in the larger markets, but we're going to see some teams falter.
Baby steps. Yeah, absolutely. All right, quick topics of the day. Eddie Johnson to Seattle for Fucito and Neagle. A lot of people in Seattle are pissed off about this one. And you know what? I understand it. I like Mike Fucito. I really like him. I know he's a small little guy. I know he only played 23 games and scored three goals, but Neagle played 23 games. He scored 5 goals. That's 8 goals. You may lose next season, depending on whether or not EJ is ready to come back and in good shape, which we heard he was not necessarily in great shape. So we'll see what happens. But any reason for Seattle fans to panic?
Well, I make this argument about all strikers. People always talk about, Josie's not scoring goals, or for the U.S., he's not doing this. There's more to being a striker than just putting the ball in the back of the net. That's a big part of it, but there are a lot of things that are asked upon a striker, especially depending on formation and tactics. While scoring is definitely a big part, there are a lot of things like as far as, holding the ball up, waiting for your team to catch up, pressuring the defense. There's a lot of things that a striker does outside of just scoring goals.
Yeah.
And Neagle and Fucito are, I really like them. They didn't get much. I didn't get much production there, but overall, I thought they're two decent players in MLS. And the fact that Seattle traded them off for EJ,
Yeah.
who bounced around Europe, whose best stint over there was over with Aries, who came to MLS, but then decided to reject their offer and say, you know what, I'm going to check out my other offer.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes to Mexico, where he failed a physical. Yeah, he failed the physical,
Yep.
and then he comes back to MLS, gets signed by Montreal, who traded him immediately. There have been some moves with Montreal that I've questioned, the whole Ching incident.
Yep.
What they got out of it, I still question it. But they've made some decent picks, in the expansion drafts and the trades afterwards, picking up EJ here and then immediately trading him off. I think Montreal's, I think they're doing some decent moves there, and they're going to be a decent team. And I really question what EJ's really going to bring to Seattle. He hasn't really played much recently.
Now, EJ didn't technically fail the physical. He basically failed the trial. They did say he was not completely physically fit. But they also said he was slower than they thought he was, and they thought he was smaller than they thought he was, or at least played smaller. So I didn't think he technically failed the physical.
Regardless.
Well, but I understand what you're saying. All right, so okay, that'd be really interesting if this doesn't work out, because there are going to be a lot of pissed off Seattle fans. Michael Ballack to MLS again. Does this really have to come up in the rumor section? I mean, seriously. New York, and then his agent, and he are only talking about New York or L.A. I don't think his agent, like so many players in Europe, have any clue how things work here, because they wouldn't be talking about New York or L.A. because both those clubs are full of the DP players, and you're not going.
New York could support another one if they wanted to.
Could they?
They only have Marquez and they have Henry.
All right. Okay.
They don't have the third one. They'd have to pay for the third spot, but they could still house another DP if they wanted to.
Technically, they probably could, but they are paying quite a bit of money for all those Scandinavian players, though.
They're paying a lot for Marquez and Henry.
Yeah, those aren't cheapies. So I
don't think Ballack's going to be cheaper in either. They're already paying $15 million for Marquez and Henry.
Yeah, I'd be shocked.
Imagine at least another $10 million.
Not that they won't flip for it, but does every European player, big European player, do they always just have to mention New York and LA? There are other teams in the league, if they haven't noticed. Okay, all right, so that brings us, a couple announcements. Robbie Rogers did get 13 minutes for Leeds, and we'll bring that up because we had a show about it.
And he left with a concussion.
And he left with a concussion. True, yes. And then the old LA Kings COO, Chris McGowan, who wasn't a really close friend, but I played, soccer with his brother, Chad McGowan, for many years. And I did know Chris as a youth, a young man, a young boy. And actually, Chris was one hell of a soccer player. He is now the CEO of LA Galaxy. So congratulations to him. I'm not promising it'll give us any inside track on any inside information whatsoever. We do talk and have been talking on Facebook and other places, but I'm sure he's not going to give me any good tidbits. Believe me, he's a professional.